Please be aware, these are two pre-series machines, so details might change until serious production will start in the end of Q1 2026. And yes, now you can see we already spoiled that the Gen 4 will be our candidate for Tractor of the Year 2027. It's now almost 10 years ago that we presented the 1000 series on Agritechnica 2015. Since then, the machine has been very well received in the market. Lots of happy customers in Europe and all over the globe. It was a real boost for us, especially in North and South America, this tractor series. And just a few words about the positioning of the machine within our wheel tractor portfolio. It sits right at the top. It's our largest wheel tractor offering. It's meant for large arable farms, which need the highest draft performance, the highest PTO performance, and also the most versatility you can get from such a high horsepower tractor. This is why we stayed with the standard tractor concept initially, and why it is still a standard tractor, because this tractor can do lots of different tasks. For example, we are now in summer. It could run in front of a grain cart, then it could run in front of a simple harrow, it can run the disc, it can run a deep tillage tool, it can even run the seeder in the end of the season, so you get lots of hours on one machine, so your machine costs go down, the cost per hour. It's also meant for large custom contractors which do some wood chipping with it, with wood chippers in the back. They can put grinders in the back, they can put soil stabilizers in the back for forestry and road work. So every time where you need like really high PTO power, you get it with this tractor. And that's why custom contractors love it. Of course, you can push silage with it too, because we have the front linkage over there. All right. Then with the 4th generation, we will have 4 models. There will be a 1040, a 1044, a 1048 and a 1052. If you add a 0 to the last 2 numbers, you get the rated horsepower, 400, 440, 480, 520 rated horsepower. And you also see that now the last 2 numbers on the decal, they are in red. They are in red on every model in the lineup, which means we have dynamic performance on every model. There are between 26 and 30 horsepower of dynamic performance on the 4 models. So you get 426, 466, 507 and 550 maximum horsepower on the 4 models. That's 33 horsepower more than the 1050 of the Gen 3, which is a really decent upgrade. And these additional horsepower, the DP horsepower, they are there for your auxiliary consumers, like the air compressor, the climate compressor, or even the alternator. They have the power for those components, so that your main components, like the drive and the PTO, they always have enough power so your productivity stays continuously high. Otherwise, the vehicle stays, like the basic vehicle, the chassis stays the same. We have the same wheelbase. We have in general the same outer dimensions. Of course, we have the new cab on it. So there are a few differences in the millimeter range, but nothing dramatic. We also stay with the 14 metric tons of operating weight without any weights added to the tractor. No front weight, no wheel weights. So here in the front, we still offer our 3 front hitch options. One of them is just a simple COM4 ballast pickup. There are no hydraulic cylinders then. We just lower the front axle, then we drive to the front weight. We just lift the front axle again, and that's how we pick up our weight, instead of carrying single weight blocks to the front of the tractor or using a forklift or a telehandler. It's a really simple and easy way, which is also the cheapest front hitch option we offer. Then there are 2 real front power lifts, with the better one being shown on this tractor. It has the relief control function, which means, let's say the front packer, which could be in front of here, really nicely follows the contour of the field. We transfer weight from the front packer to the front axle so that the packer just doesn't sink so deep into the ground. We have the right amount of recompaction, and we also have more weight on the front axle, which means we get better steering with the front axle then. Regarding front weight options, there's one new option, the 2.2 metric tons ones, which you now already know from the 800 series. It'll be now available on the 1000 series as well, so that we can go from 1.25 metric tons up to 3.3 tons in the price list. Of course, every other Fendt front weight will fit on here as well, but usually people don't use them. This is the 3.3 tons one, really compact, so that our headlights can just easily shine above it, and yeah, there's no blinding or reflection with them. Then we still have our optional front hydraulic valve here, double acting one with 120 liters per minute. We still have our optional hydraulic return flow here. Then we have new corner work lights. These are our corner work lights. They now come in 1000 or 2900 lumen. They are now LED every time. There's no halogen anymore. You get the same components up here with 1000 or 2900 lumen in each of them, so that in total we have a better illumination of the front attachment area. Also new now is the digital front camera here in the Dieselros emblem, which was initially published with the 700 Gen 7 and now is available on the 1000 series as well. So that attaching your front weight is just easy. You can stay alone. You don't need a second person because you just have a clear view of the front area. Then we will move on to the engine and open the hood here. We are still using our concentric air system, CAS, which means we have the fan in front of the radiator package. This fan draws in cold air and then pushes it through the radiator package. It has its own hydraulic motor here, so that it can run its speed independent from the engine speed. Each single radiator, which has the corresponding component in the tractor, let's say for hydraulic oil cooling, basically tells the radiator how much cooling demand there is, and then the the fan will speed up or slow down accordingly, so that we just cool on demand and just as needed. Also with this setup, there's the benefit that we use cold air to cool. It wouldn't make sense to use warm air, right? And that's what we do here. And then also the radiator package is always the widest part here in the front. So we have it on one line with the front axle, because here on one line with the front axle we have the space. We don't waste any space. But we need the space behind and in front of the radiator package, so that we can have a better maneuverability, because the wheels can go more to the inside and more to the inside here as well. So with the fan design, we already decided on what the maneuverability of this tractor will be. The fan is available as a reversible fan, which is an option. So you can clean out your hood and also part of the radiators through the reversible function of the fan. Then moving on to the engine, which sits behind it. It's still our trusted MAN D26 engine, but now it's an updated version. We have internal and external changes that were made to it. There's a long list of changes. For example, details were changed on the injectors, the crankshaft and the pistons, so that in total we have a better diesel and AdBlue efficiency with this engine. And just because all these changes, they sum up to a better package. It still has 12.4 liters of displacement, 6 cylinders and the VTG turbocharger, and with that variable turbine geometry we also realize our exhaust brake just by changing the angle. We still run the Fendt ID low engine speed concept between 650 and 700 revolutions per minute, which has 3 main benefits. We have low noise levels, we have less wear of the components because there's not so much movement, and we also lower our fuel consumption just because the engine isn't revving up so high. Then with the 4 new models we also have 4 new engine maps. Every model gets a new engine map. They have more power and also more torque right from the start till the end of the engine speed range. Not somewhere in the back, right from the start. You will feel the power, but you will especially feel the torque that is improved with this tractor. For example, the feedback from our test drivers is really great about this torque improvement on the tractor. Even when the implement is still in the ground, you check your depth on the deep tillage implement and you want to start again, the tractor just drives away. It feels really agile and torquey because of the torque improvement. On the top model we then have 2650 Newton meters, which is 230 Newton meters more than the predecessor, which is a really decent upgrade. Then there's one brand new feature on the engine. It's called Fendt Adaptive Power, which means you buy one model on paper, but in reality you get all the smaller models within the same tractor as well. Let's say you buy a 1052, then you also have the engine mats of a 1048, a 1044 and a 1040. And you can select those while standing or while driving in the Fendt 1 terminal by the touch of a button. You can do it even while working. You only get the smaller models. There's one reason for it. We want happy customers, and the customers should buy their tractor according to the highest power requirement they have, so they never run out of power. But they then can go down in certain cases, and there are 2 main cases we think of with this feature. We want to protect PTO driven implements. There were cases where the raw power on the PTO stub of the 1000 series was just too much for the transmission on the PTO driven implements, let's say on a power harrow. So there was damage on the transmission on the implement. And we don't want to wait for implement manufacturers to put other transmissions on the implements. So we provide a simple, easy solution right now so that the customers can protect their implements. There's another case we think of with this feature, which is just saving fuel. For example, you have the 1052, you are just using a harrow, you don't need 550 horse. You can do it with 400 as well. And then you save fuel all the time because power comes from fuel. And if you have a different engine map, there's less fuel going into the engine all the time without thinking about it. And you save fuel then all the time. And because you can change it while driving, you can really dial in the perfect power level you need right now for that type of work which you are doing in that moment. Right. The big picture behind it is that with this feature we increase the versatility of the tractor again. There's actually no reason anymore to not use the tractor because it can go from 400 up to 550 horse, and it really adapts to each single situation, and that's why we call it Fendt Adaptive Power. Then on the engine we still have our 1000 hour engine oil change interval, or 1 year. For the European Union we have the exhaust after treatment, which complies to stage 5, just like before. We have 740 liters of diesel and 79 liters of AdBlue, which are enough for long working days. And then we have another interesting feature, which you already know, which is our self-cleaning engine air filter. So this is the engine air filter housing. You see that there is a big hose here on the housing, and this hose runs to the front and then ends up here. And because of the design of the fan, with like really little distance between the fan itself and the outer part of the fan, there's negative pressure here at the fan, and this negative pressure then transfers into that hose and is apparent up here at the air filter housing as well. So we have a continuous dust extraction out of the engine air filter. In addition, we have an active component up there where we give distinct shots of pressured air into the filter, which then like really blows out the filter element, and then the dust gets extracted. So with this feature, the operator has one less thing to worry about for the daily maintenance. And because it's so great, we thought, hey, why don't we do it for the cab air filter too? And that's what we then have here on the tractor now. So if we open the cab air filter housing here, and take out the filter element, then we now see that we have a cyclone separator in here. It sits here in the sidewall. The dirty air comes down here, goes through here. Then there is a line, a hose, which is hooked up to the front, to the engine parts of it, like the engine self-cleaning components and engine air filter self-cleaning components. That's what I mean. And so before the dirty air enters the housing, the dust gets extracted, and most of the remaining dust gets caught in the cyclone separator and then gets extracted as well. So that with this feature, there's no daily maintenance of or blowing out of the cab air filter anymore. It always depends on how dusty it is. So there's no answer for every situation. But with these circumstances, which are really dusty, I'd say you'd need now 2 to 3 days for you can stay, you can let the filter in there for 2 to 3 days without the need to clean them, instead of doing it daily. Right. You always get the cab component with the engine component. We sell them as a package. You either get both or you get nothing. And for me, the cab air filter component, the engine air filter component, and also the optional reversible fan, I see them as one solution. So you really have like clean air for the machine and the operator all the time. So you protect the health of the operator. The engine can always breathe optimally, run really efficiently, and also there's no heat up in the front because the hood is always clean because of that reversible function. Right, then we are here where the transmission sits roughly. It's still our Vario drive TA400 one-stage variable four-wheel drive with 2 hydraulic motors, one for the rear, one for the front. The Vario drive is tension-free in any given situation, which means that we protect the chassis because there's no tension in it, so that the value of the machine stays high. We have a high resale value also because of this, and the resale value is one main component of the total cost of ownership in such a machine. Also, we have many agronomic benefits because the wheels, they do not etch on the ground. There's no wear on the tires, and also no topsoil damage. Let's imagine we have a cornfield, we already planted the headlands, then we need to drive on the headlands again to do the inner part of the field. Then there's no topsoil damage on the headlands and the corn will still grow perfectly. The biggest change on the transmission is the 4,000 hour transmission oil change interval. So we doubled the transmission oil change interval, which again lowers your total cost of ownership. It's a different sensor, and that we can do it actually. You do not need any different oil for it. It just works. Also, there were small improvements made to the transmission because we have more engine power. This power also needs to go into the transmission, so there are small changes inside so that we can take up the increased power and torque. And also we increased the hydraulic oil cooling performance. More power means more heat up of the oil. We need to cool that down. and we improved it so well, so good, that we can also have a better cooling of the rest of the hydraulic oil that we would use in the rear and in the front. On the outside, you see that we have new multifunction front lights. Christopher, the stage is yours. So the multifunction front lights are these lights here. They now have a horizontal instead of a vertical design. We have the position lights now in here, and also the turning indicator. And Christopher will turn that on in a second. Right. Yeah, so now you can see that it's like in the automotive industry, where it runs from the inside to the outside. The design just really fits nicely into the general design of the machine, and it's also another layer of safety, because it's, yeah, you can see it really well what the operator will do. Yep. Okay, then of course we have the new rear view mirrors, which now have covers which are in nature green. The covers are made out of plastic, which is nature green itself, so in case you hit a tree and you don't lose the mirror, you just have scratches on it, then the scratches will still be green and not white. If you order a special color on the tractor, we have every RAL color available from Markt Oberdorf, and you get black covers up there. Then we have either 8 or 12 fixed work lights in the cab roof, and up to 10 work lights all around the cab. There are up to 4 here on the A-post, then up to 2 on the rear fenders, and up to 4 on the so-called tech rails. The tech rails are our new C-post attachment rail. You can get them with work lights, X-Works, and you can also get them as a single option. They are meant for work lights, but they are also meant for other things, other adapters. For example, we had a front hopper, a front seed hopper in the front, and then our tillage tool for seeding a cover crop in the back. And so we were running our seed hose through an adapter that was attached to the attachment rail. So you do not need to drill any holes in the fenders, you do not need any custom solution, you just use this dedicated point which you get from the factory, so that the machine just stays untouched and the resale value stays high. Regarding the work lights, we then have up to 22 work lights in total all around the cab. They either come in vision or ultra vision. With vision we have 1000 lumen in each of them, and with ultra vision we have 4400 lumen in each of them. You can only combine vision with ultra vision, vision with vision, and ultra vision with ultra vision. Of course, makes sense. Then with the ultra vision you have more functionality. Within the ultra vision family there are different work lights again, you can say. What I mean by that is that we have different diffusers built into them. For example, if we look at this one, this is a long range ultra vision one. There's almost no diffusion in it. Then we have a mid-range ultra vision here with a little more diffusion. And if we move around here, we see that there is even more diffusion in this one. And depending on where the work light sits and where the light needs to go, where it should go, we then pick the corresponding diffusers in these work lights. With the ultra vision work lights you also have more functionality which they offer. You have 5 levels of brightness which you can adjust in the Fendt 1 terminal. You can turn on and off every individual light, so you can really customize your pattern. Let's say you customize your pattern for unloading on the go. You have the grain cart to the right hand side. You turn off most of the lights on the right hand side to not blind the combine operator. You maybe lower the brightness in the back so that the grain cart behind you and this, like the wall on the grain cart, doesn't really reflect much of the light into the cab. And then you unload on the go safely. it's a long field, you need to go up again and do the same thing on the same side, then you do not have to type in everything manually again, you just hit the mirror button. And so everything gets mirrored to the other side and you are there with just one click, which just saves time and is just a really comfortable way of doing it. Then of course you can save your current customized settings in up to 4 profiles. In the future there will be a 5th one just for reverse drive. It's not a standard setting, you can also customize that setting then. So our engineers, they thought carefully about every little detail on these work lights, whether they are fixed or adjustable, which diffuser to use, even which height to put the work light on. For example, this one here, it doesn't just sit on the rear fender, which would have been possible as well to stay cheap, but no, we have this extension underneath so that we do not get a shade around the vehicle, which we do not want. And also, the detail I like the most are these small edges up here. So this here is not a design element, it has a real function, and it prevents that we have reflections in the windows from our own work lights. We have this edge around here, on the other side as well, and in the front too. So with the work lights you get a really even, almost daylight comparable, really bright experience all around the tractor, 360 degree, so that you can work really late into the night without any fatigue. Of course, we have the ground vision work lights on this tractor too, which sit here in the rear fenders, one on each side. And so in total, with all the work lights, the ground vision, which really put light close to your tractor. For example, if you have a large square baler behind it, you have a perfect view on the pickup, and it's also easier to hook up to implements during the night. With all the lights we have, that's what I wanted to say, so work lights and headlights, we then have 120,500 lumen on this vehicle, which is 76% more than the predecessor, 76%, which really is a lot. The integrated beacons now, so this is a beacon, same on the other side and in the front, now nicely integrated into the cab, not sticking above the cab anymore, no danger of damaging them. Then speaking of rear windows, there's now a new option. This is a standard rear window in a heated version. What's new now is that we have on that tractor a tinted rear window. So you see it's darker. It has a legal amount of tint, so you can do legal roading with this window, with this rear window, and you still get the benefits of less solar radiation going into the cab, less heat up and less blinding. It's almost like your sunglasses. Then there is another small detail in the back, which we will look at here on this one. It's our new 3-pin socket, which you can turn on and off from inside the cab. You know the 3-pin sockets from inside the cab. There's always current on them, electricity. On this one you can turn it on and off from inside the cab. You also find it in the work light menu, and for me it's also part of the work light offering overall, because more and more people use work lights on their implements. The implements get wider and wider. You need work lights on your implements. You want to use them in the field, and then you want to turn them off while roading, and you don't want to leave the cab for that. And with this option you don't have to, you just do it out of the cab. Then inside the cab there are 3 main changes. We have a new 12-liter compressor cool box, a cooler, which can cool down to -18 degrees Celsius. Then we have new footrests, optional footrests, 3. One on the left, one on the right hand side of the steering column, and one on the really right hand side. These are compatible with both cool boxes we offer. Regarding hydraulics here in the rear, it stays pretty much unchanged. We have no 165 liters per minute pump anymore. The take rate was low. We now start with 220 liters per minute, and then we still offer our dual pump option with 220 and 210 liters per minute. The dual pump is like the best solution for implements which have different requirements regarding volume and pressure for the hydraulic. Let's say you have a big corn planter behind, then you would run one circuit, the fan, with high volume and low pressure, and the other circuit for the row units and the downforce they need with low volume but high pressure. So every pump just has one job to do, which it then does really efficiently, and so the overall efficiency of the setup goes up. We now have Power Beyond available with flat face coupling, like we already have on the main spool valves. And like we always had on Fendts, we still have our two circuits, one for the hydraulic oil itself that we would use here and in the front, and one for the transmission oil, so that in any given situation there's no contamination of the transmission oil. Still not an industry standard, that's why I say it again. Then we can now speak about the rear hitch. We have everything we offered before, and we have one big update. With this tractor we have a completely new setup which we will offer for Europe. So this is meant for example for this region where we are standing right here. It consists of several components. The first is a new hitch frame. This is a hitch frame here. It goes from here to here. The hitch frame is a hybrid out of a European and a North American hitch frame. We still have our sliding rail here for a standard wagon hitch like we have it on the other tractor, so you could in theory still pull your 18-ton wagon with the 1000 series in case you want to and need to. And then down here we have the North American part of it. So there are integrated attachment points for drawbars. You don't need any additional parts for your drawbars, which you would need on other hitches. In this attachment interface here, we can run swiveling drawbars in Cat 4 and Cat 5. They are swiveling. If we remove the pins here, then they can move a little to the left and right, because there's also one center pin back there, which is always there. With the swiveling drawbars, you get less stress on the tractor and the implement while turning, and it's also easier to hook up to some implements because you just have a little space to play with. We have the two drawbars we offer for here, and we also offer a North American K80. You can imagine that like a drawbar which doesn't have a big pin in the end, but a K80 ball type hitch. And in that drawbar K80 we also have K54 steering balls integrated. And the main benefit of this setup is that we extend to the rear very much, almost like a long K80 that we always had traditionally. It really extends to the back, to the rear, so we get the maneuverability benefits, and then we still can put 4 tons of vertical load on it, which is really important for large slurry tankers, for instance, or large grain carts. So we get both the maneuverability and the 4 tons of vertical load. Then we move on to the outsides. You see we now use so-called rub blocks here on the hitch frame and also on the lower link arms. There are no side stabilizers here. There's empty space here. So that the side stabilization of the rear power lift now is done by the correct spread here of the lower link arms and the implement in between, and then the touching of the 2 rub blocks here. In case there's no implement in between, we have this big spring which holds them together and prevents any swaying. We think that most customers will run the drawbars and the K80 in here, but if they have an implement like this where you need to use it, then we still have the rear power lift. The reason why we wanted to gain this space here, this empty space without any side stabilization here, is that we can now move the inner tires real close to the center of the tractor. These two tires are now running on a 60-inch tread setting, which is 1,524 millimeters. We have these tires on the 2.5 meter bar axle with our single wheel hub. Then we move to the outside. We have the dual tire on our dual wheel hub, and there's also a little 50 millimeter spacer in between. And because we started so close to the center, the overall width of this setup stays below 3.50 meters, which was our main goal with this setup, because below 3.50 meters, you might know it from combines. For example, in Germany, we then can do legal roading because we comply to Article 70 and 29 for our vehicle and route specific permit that we can then get. We want to run this setup because with it we can get more traction. We can really get the additional horsepower we have on this tractor straight on the ground. To get the power to the ground, we use 480/95 R54 row crop tires. Again, a thing we learned from North America. These row crop tires have a really narrow lug distance. This is a lug. There's less space than on a standard tire in between here. So that with these large tires, they are 2.3 meters high. We can go up to 2.35 meters, which is still a unique selling proposition in the market. Nobody else can do it, X works. We can use, or we can run these large tires, and with the large circumference we have lots of lugs all around. And if we then lower the pressure, for example to 1 bar, which we are running here, you can see that we have a lot of lugs down here which have a really nice ground contact. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, I always speak of 4 pairs of lugs which really lock into the ground, because the tire is so large and it gets really long because of that low pressure. We have it on this tire, on the next tire, on all tires. So in total there are 16 pairs of lugs which really lock into the ground, giving you that perfect traction that you need for the additional horsepower. The tires also have another benefit. The sidewall is fairly small, so this part of it, so that we use as little energy just in like the movement of the tire itself, and also there's no power hopping with this setup. Then we also have this large rim inside, the 54-inch rim, so that we have a really large contact area between rim and rubber, so that in any given case there's no twisting of rubber and rim against each other. And we run it on the 2.5 meter stub axle, which you see here. This is the stub axle, this is the dual wheel hub, so that then we transmit the power into the rim where it should be transmitted into the rim, right here in the center via the wheel studs. With traditional European dual systems, you would use the clamp system that would then sit here on the outside of the rim. Rims can then break, or you would need enforced rims, which might break as well, and they are always more expensive than standard rims. With this you can just use standard rims and transmit the power safely. Of course you can get Vario grip on this setup like you can with all of our tires. So we have the pressure line here coming through the stub axle, and then the control line here coming also through the stub axle. We have the outer dual hooked up here, and then we go back again through the wheel stud to the inner wheel. Same on the other side and same in the front. The nice thing is that you get this setup from the factory. X works. You just click one option of it, and then everything else gets proposed in the configurator and CPQ, so that you do not need to work with any third-party supplier. Get it right from Oberdorf. We can ship it from there throughout Europe. If you buy this setup, you then get 710 single tires in the front, 710 60 R38. We stayed with single tires in the front because most of the power gets transmitted in the rear. Then we can stay cheaper there, and we also increase our maneuverability. Duals in the front always lower maneuverability. So that with our design of the concentric air system, the Vario drive transmission with its pull and turn effect, the single tires, and also now a wider tread setting of 2.25 meters, 20 centimeters more, we have an improved turning circle of now 14.4 meters in diameter. Otherwise, the front axle stays unchanged. Right, you could also run single tires on this setup, just removing the dual wheel hub and then putting, let's say, a 900 tire on the single wheel hub. No problem, easy tread adjustment, a lot of benefits. And now the stop axle itself, not this setup, but the stop axle can run 60 kilometers per hour, which was only available with the flange axle before. Now it's available here too. So there's no real reason against a stop axle anymore. People still hesitate, at least in Germany, to buy a stop axle. I think it's just a mindset thing, and especially for dual tires, we recommend this setup. Then there's one last thing I want to show, which is our new wheel weight. This wheel weight can sit in between here. Each wheel weight has 1.3 metric tons of weight. There are two new features on these wheel weights. We have one flat side, so that if you don't use it, you can just put it on the ground and it doesn't roll away. And then with stop axles and traditional wheel weight handling tools, you would put the wheel weight handling tool into the inside of the wheel weight, and then if you have a stop axle behind, you could not mount or demount the wheel weight because your wheel weight handling tool would always hit the stop axle. So that's why we now have on the outside of the wheel weight two forklift pockets where you can drive in with your forklift. Then we have two undercuts to put safety straps through so that the wheel weight sits really secure on the forklift. And then you can just drive to the tractor, mount it, demount it without any hassle, because you just don't hit that stop axle in the middle anymore. So there's another layer of flexibility that we gain with this option now. Series production will start in the end of Q1 2026. So we will see them around April, May, I'd say, in the market. Ordering starts in November with Agritechnica.